So, given how much I love college football, this will probably come as no surprise to anybody, but every year I look forward to the NFL draft. It's one of my favorite events. So much so that when it was in Dallas, I made it a point to attend and had a phenomenal time. But last night, as I was watching the first round unfold, something couldn't escape my mind. And I kept wondering, what does a side-by-side comparison of the conferences and their development rates in the first round of the NFL draft look like? And so after the first round was done, I grabbed my notebook, I grabbed my pen, came to the computer, and I checked out the last few drafts and compared each conference in their first round draft picks, and the results are telling, and it's really surprising we aren't talking about this major issue more than we are. Before we jump into all of this, y'all know the drill. I need to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, Y for yes, N for no. And with the shifting landscape of college football, do you believe that development will still be king in college football recruiting? And let me know what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, like and comment down below, as those interactions, though seemingly small, are massive to content creators such as myself, and both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But with all that being said, we need to jump right into this because there's a bit for us to unpack. Because as I was sitting there wondering how the conferences would compare, it was really interesting when I got onto NFL.com and actually started taking a look at some of the prior drafts. So in order to compile this list, I used the drafts from 2014 to last night's first round to be able to get how these conferences are comparing to one another in terms of first round development. And the results were quite frankly shocking in the sense that we aren't talking about a major issue within the Big 12 right now, and we should be. And that is the rate of development. Because when you compare the Big 12's rate of development to every other Power 5 conference, it quite frankly just does not stack up. And in fairness to the Big 12, they've brought in some solid coaching staffs. You look at Baylor with Dave Aranda, that's a coaching staff that knows how to develop. You look at Oklahoma with the coaching staff they just brought in from Clemson, that's a staff that knows how to develop. You look at some of the coaches in Texas, Bo Davis, Kyle Flood, I mean, there are guys on that staff that know how to develop. And so I'm not saying that this is a problem that's going to extend into the future. What I am saying, though, is in order to best address this problem, you must first understand that the problem exists and understand the severity of the problem. And that was what was really surprising when I started diving into it. So let's check it out, and we'll start with the Big 12. Because as I was going through and checking out the drafts, a trend started. The Big 12 had no first-round appearances last night and had no first-round appearances the previous year. And in fact, from 2014 till last night, the Big 12 has only sent 18 individuals to the first round of the NFL draft. And that is a staunch difference to the rest of the Power 5. Because if we look at the next closest Power 5 conference, the Pac-12, well, they've sent 38. If we look after that is the Big 10, where they've sent 50. The ACC has sent 52, and the SEC is lapping everybody with 96 entries in the first round of the NFL draft since 2014. And look, this is absolutely something that matters. Whenever you're recruiting these high-ranking prospects out of high school, these individuals are going to be much more inclined to go to an institution or a conference that gives them a higher likelihood of being a first-rounder. And the reason why I posed the question in the intro of do you believe that development will still be king in the shifting landscape of college football is simple. NIL is undoubtedly going to be a factor in recruiting now. Nobody's going to deny that. But NIL is funny money as compared to that first round draft money. And as great as the money is in the second round, the third round, and all rounds thereafter, you're still talking about a massive difference between first round money and third round money. Enough of a difference that the rate of development absolutely comes into play. And the Big 12 has got major brands in it. The Big 12 as a conference is one that has had success before. And so to see them so far behind in terms of first round development was shocking. And let's not make a mistake. I'm not saying that the Big 12 can't develop. Notice I'm very careful to say first round development, because I'm not saying that Big 12 teams haven't sent players to the NFL in the second, third, fourth rounds, and those players gone on to have incredible careers. They absolutely have, and that is not my contention here. However, as I just explained, there's a large difference in change between first round money and fourth round money. And if you're a Big 12 fan, I don't mean to pile on, but it gets worse, because not only are you last in terms of Power 5 first round development, but there are institutions in other conferences that have had more first round draft picks than the entirety of the Big 12. And if we look at it, as I said, the Big 12 since 2014 has had 18 first rounders. Alabama has had 27, Ohio State has had 20, Georgia has had 14, Clemson has had 13, LSU has had 12, and that's just painting the picture that other institutions are almost at the same level of first-round development as an entire conference, and that just cannot remain the case. And it really underscores a big reason, in my opinion, not the sole reason, but certainly a reason that two of the biggest brands in college football in Texas and Oklahoma are looking to move to the SEC, because they're going to have to rise to the level of competition in the SEC. And I understand we can talk about the SEC maybe not being as strong as they should be in bowl games and maybe underperforming in bowl games, and I'll grant you that. But the smartest minds in football consistently look to one conference at a disproportionate rate in the first round, and that is the SEC, and that means something. And so Texas and Oklahoma making their entrance into the SEC, that's going to demand that their first round development rates increase if they want to be as competitive as they could be. And so that's a great move for Texas and Oklahoma. But for the rest of the Big 12, this status quo cannot continue. And there's a reason why I started this out by pointing out some of the great hires that have been made within the Big 12 in terms of coaching. Because things could change, but they have got to change. Things cannot stay the way they are, because there's too much movement in other conferences right now. The Big 12 has got some excitement in it, but so does the Pac-12 with Lincoln Riley out there now, Dan Lanning at Oregon. There's a lot of teams right now that are in an interesting position, and what you do not want is to be left behind. Stagnation is the enemy of progression, and right now the Big 12 absolutely needs to progress if they want to continue being the conference they could be. So it's going to be interesting to see, but it was absolutely shocking to see the staunch difference in first round development between the Big 12 and the SEC, where the SEC had almost 80 more players in the first round of the NFL draft since 2014, and that's shocking. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.